What up? What up? We
How's
are
it going?
live. How you doing, son?
Good, good.
Yeah, well, we're back. And this one is kind of like I don't know, this is going to be a tough one, Black identity. Well, what's the problem? I'm Blue Father.
Red Sun, tapping in. How's it
Tap it
going?
in. How you doing, my man? And then we're going to see, is this just a identity problem? Is it a party line issue? Um Whatever it is, but I'm excited to get into it. All right. Black identity crisis. I'll allow you to go first.
Yeah, man. You know, before we get into it,
Mhm.
I just want to do a little housekeeping here. I want to do a quick correction on the last podcast. I did listen back.
Yeah,
I don't want to give out fake news. I want to give out, get out correct information. But anyway,
I
so
love it.
on the last podcast when we were talking about the whole debate about pro life and abortion, and all that. I believe
Mhm.
I said 80 to 90%. It's not that high as far as like black women in America getting abortions, them
Mhm.
being at 13% of the population. But I believe it's like 40 from the
Yeah.
numbers I looked up, it's like 40%. It's not 80. That I was way off. That's so I just want to make that correction because when people come and look at the video, be like, man, you giving some false information, So I just wanted to correct that. But even
Nice.
the point still remains that hey, it's we're too overly represented in that aspect. But anyway, so on our topic today,
Mhm.
Black identity crisis. And when you first text me um, what we're going to talk about tonight, I was like, man, I thought about identity because I mean that's paramount to everything, man. How you view, first of all, like how you view yourself
Mhm.
um, is very, very important because it also it determines how you view the outside world, how you view other people.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? So if you have a if you have a, a certain view about yourself as a human being, you're naturally gonna view other people a certain way as well,
Mhm.
by default. So, and I really feel like this is paramount because how you view yourself hinges on everything, man. How you make your daily life decisions, to the type of clothes you wear, to the type of music you listen to. Of course, in this aspect, who what political party you line up with. Um, and so and it also made me just think about like how you know in the black community there's a lot of what you call tribalism. Some people said that when they view black community, it's like this tribalism of like, hey, you know, if you're black, it's a given that you must vote this way, and
Mhm.
if you don't, man, you ain't invited to the cookout. You're not part of us. You know what I mean? It's not.
Mhm.
So it's like, and then it just. I mean, I feel like this episode could be like a 2 or 3 part episode, man, because
Yeah, we do that.
it goes so deep, man. Identity,
Mhm.
it touches so many things, man. In life, obviously. But it but what made me really think about it was I was listening to a recent podcast and they were talking about black conservatism, and they didn't like the word black conservatism
Mhm.
because they said, why is it that every time when somebody somebody of African descent does something, you have to attach black to it,
Mhm.
and basically they were saying is like, I'm just a conservative. Why do I have to be black conservative? White people you don't see people saying white conservative or Asian conservative, yellow conservative. They just say, oh yeah, I'm a conservative.
Mhm. Mhm.
Um, and then of course in the podcast they were talking about different things that politicians have said. Of course Biden came out and said, during the last one when Trump, him and Trump run up against each other. Of course, he said, if you don't, he came out and said, if you don't, I think he was on the Breakfast Club at that time, but
Yeah.
anyway,
Yeah.
he said, if you don't vote black, I mean, if you don't vote for me, then you ain't black.
Mhm.
And I guess the guys on the podcast were kind of saying like, hey, why didn't black folks on the left and the right take offense to that?
Mhm.
I
Mhm.
mean, which he's like, I only noticed black, to my until they're saying to their knowledge, and I mean, I don't know, I really haven't gone out and searched this to myself either, but
Mhm.
Um, no black liberals or black progressives said, "Hey," nobody came and checked Biden and said, "Hey, man, like, are you the arbiter of the black card? Like, you snatching people's black cards now if they don't vote for you?" You know? So, yeah, man, that was my, that was my idea, but I don't wanna take up too much because I know we're on a time restraint, as well, man, but yeah, what'd you think about that?
Well, I mean, I think that what Biden was saying, because he was comparing himself to Trump,
Mhm.
because the things that Trump had said, and Trump's kind of like Trump being sued for racial discrimination in the 70s, the Central Park Five, when he wished to death on 5 black boys. That could have been me, that could have been you. um the fact that this may have came after, but the fact that Trump said that African countries are S-hole countries,
Mhm.
telling the Proud Boys to stand back and stand by. There's good people on both sides.
Yeah.
So I think that, when I don't think Biden should have said that. I mean, I don't think any white man should say, you ain't black if you don't do anything for me, because I don't think he's in any racial position or color position to say anything like that. I think Biden is known for saying things that he shouldn't say,
Mhm, mhm,
but I'm more concerned with what a person does and what Trump has does. Here's one of the huge. There's many problems I got with Trump, but one of the things that we have to pay attention to is, what is he trying to attack, and that is him trying to end Obamacare, right?
mhm, mhm,
So he just couldn't stand at the fact that a black man had passed national health care when it was tried under the Truman administration, the Roosevelt administration, and it all got blocked. And they were saying, well, the way to get rid of a people is to keep them unhealthy. So
mhm,
that's why in the Republican states they want to expand Medicare in Texas, in Mississippi, in Alabama, because they don't want black folks to have access to health care. So I think we have to pay attention to, Trump has said and done things that are, you know, very adversarial to black progression. So I think black conservatives got to speak up on Trump too.
mhm, mhm, mhm. Yeah, and and at the same time, I do feel like, whenever a politician comes out and says something dumb
Hmm.
and they happen to be on your side of the aisle, like, we're their surrogates, like we gotta come out and we gotta defend everything they say. It's like, well, no, he's his own person. Yeah, that was dumb. He shouldn't have said that, and
Hmm.
just like
Hmm.
vice
Hmm.
versa. You know, um, like any conservative would tell you, man, like any, a lot of, because even like recently, the whole thing with a lot of conservatives were upset with Trump because but with the whole pro-life issue, he came out
Yeah.
and said, basically, leave it up to the states, leave it up to the states, and I'm against a total ban,
Hmm. Hmm.
and he's backpedaling from what he said in 2016 when he was for a total ban, and also that the women should be held responsible for the abortion, not just the doctor, or not
Hmm.
just the significant other, the boyfriend that's coercing her to get this abortion, but she should be held liable as well. So, um, but yeah, man, it's I think I think I think basically how I feel about the whole thing is like, okay, I'll give a prime example, man. Um, I was in college, Al Camino, and
Hmm.
we were all, of course, most of the team was 80-90% black, and they were all talking. We're talking about movies and stuff like that. And they say, "Hey, Marcus, have you seen such and such a movie?" I can't remember what the movie it was. It might have been like, it was some movie. It was some ghetto ratchet movie. But anyway, they said, "Marcus, did you see this movie?" I was like, "No, I don't think I ever saw that, man." It's like, "Man, you ain't black. You ain't seen that movie. You ain't black." But it just like it was funny at the time where they were kind of joking, and I took no offense to it. I didn't care. But anyway, but a lot of times that's type of mentality carries into over other things like politics. Oh, you don't vote that way? Oh man, you ain't black. Oh, and I got this all the time. I don't know about you, Dad, but I got this all the time, especially in LA as a kid, man. Hey man, you trying to sound white. I'm like, well, man,
Hmm.
originally I'm from Washington State. This is how we talk in the Northwest,
Hmm. Hmm. Hmm.
I ain't trying to, I know white was a language, I'm just, speaking, I'm just speaking proper English.
Yeah.
But it's like this tribalism
Hmm.
and this type of mentality where it's like, hey, if you don't do the same things like we do, then you ain't a part of us. if you don't
Mhm.
do if you don't dress exactly like we dress, if you don't listen to the same type of music we listen to, then you're
Mhm.
not a part of us. You're, you trying to be white, or you're an Oreo, or you're a sellout, Um, and I think a lot of that mentality has kind of, you know, pigeonholed a lot of black people to either not vote a certain way, or think about a certain about politics a certain way, or it's kept them like in a closet. You got a lot of black conservatives in the closet. You know what I mean? They don't now more so, and I don't like this. This is one thing. If I could say this one thing about Trump, the one thing I don't like about it's not necessarily his fault, but about the whole Trump phenomenon is
Mhm.
that you got a lot of people that like Trump, but they really don't they more so like Trump. They really don't care about conservative values, or I guess they're not really Republican. They're more Trumpites. Trump. They're more MAGA people. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
And I think whether black, white, Asian, whatever, they're like, man, I like Trump, and I get it because he didn't run at first. He didn't run as a politician. He just ran as a, hey, I'm a businessman from the outside of DC. I'm not a part of the swamp, this and this and that, and people resonated with that because they feel like, well, he's like one of us. I want to
Mhm.
be like him because
Mhm.
he has money.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? He's a celebrity. Who doesn't want to be a celebrity? Who doesn't want to have money and power? So
Mhm.
more so, people, a lot of conservatives will tell you this. Trump has moved the party himself. He's moved it toward more central, you know. Um, so yeah, yeah.
But the thing is, these MAGA people are extreme right,
Hmm.
uh, white nationalist leaning people. I mean, you got the Proud Boys. These guys are extreme right. So I think that the party, like when you look at Colin Powell, make a long story longer, he went to North Carolina and he criticized the governor and the Secretary of State because of that policy they had that where they targeted black voters, and a conservative judge overturned it. And in a ruling, it said this draconian racist law targeted black people with surgical precision. They did polls on when black people vote, and I don't want to go into too much of details, but they ended early voting. They souls to the polls, so they didn't allow people to vote on Sunday. They removed polling places out of black communities or closed them down early and things like that. So what he was saying was he was more centralized, and this party went extreme right. He was kind of embarrassed. So don't you think that Trump has sparked this galvanized? Well, you know what? I'm going to say this. I'm going to back up. I think started under Obama, because when anytime you have a black man in somewhat of a power position, it threatens white power and people get scared. So I say it started on Obama. And that's why a lot of Republicans, they say, well, Obama started racism, or Obama's divided the country, which I have no clue how anybody can say a black man divided this country. That doesn't even, that is just out of touch with reality and irrational in every sense of the word, in my opinion.
Yeah,
But and then because Obama scared him so much, we got Trump, and it seemed to me everything went extreme right.
yeah, yeah. Oh, so it was. I think with Obama, man, it was a lot. I think a lot of on the right and the left. A lot of people said, especially on the right, a lot of Republicans said, okay, now you got, basically, hey, we got a black president. Doesn't this solve all the race issues in the nation? Basically, it's kind of like, you know what I mean? That's what a lot of people were saying. Basically, basically what they were saying, America being a racist country, that's gone. That's a foregone conclusion now because hey, we got a black president now, and and then they'll, of course, they'll point to, oh, all the policies um on the left hasn't helped black folks. And of course, they'll talk about, uh, um, you got cities like Baltimore, where it's, I think Elder has brought this up, where you got cities like Baltimore, where it's all the judges, the city council, the police chief was all black, and you know so those type of things people will point to and say, hey, like, yeah, America has its past, and it still has some issues, but this boogeyman of racism, is not really there. There's, yeah, yeah.
Well, I mean, I think that okay, so I think they're playing a chess game, and
Hmm.
we're on the checkerboard. Are they hanging us from trees and doing selfies? No. Are
Yeah.
they saying you can't drink out of this water fountain? No. Are they saying you can't go into this bathroom, or you can't eat in this restaurant, or you can't go to this college and be like just overtly racist? No, but I think change. I think especially based on the Southern strategy, is where they said you have to be more abstract. I mean,
Hmm.
you can't say inward anymore. You
Yeah.
got to come up with programs and policies that will also hurt poor white people. And this is Barry Goldwater's strategy. It'll hurt poor white people, but it's going to hurt poor black people more, black people more, and middle class black people. So
Hmm.
poor white people are kind of sacrificial lamb, so they can be racist in a different way. Like, for example, the Voting Rights Act. They overturned that. And then an hour after they overturned that Voting Rights Act, what is Georgia, Florida, Ohio, Mississippi, Arizona, and all these Republican states start coming up with these draconian voter laws, like you need a birth certificate with the raised seal. You got the original marriage certificate. You can't give somebody a drink of water if they're waiting in line. All these things they've done to try to impact people from voting. Now they attack affirmative action or DEI. You got all these white supremacist murderers that are in jail now that can take their case to this Supreme Court, which is leaning conservative, like the Arbery three murderers, George Floyd's murderer, are now able to take their case to the Supreme Court and possibly get overturned because you got a conservative court.
Hmm.
So this is the strategy now that they're using. So I think, Larry said racism doesn't exist. What they're saying is, and I think what he's pigeonholed to, is that there is no Jim Crow anymore.
Hmm.
Okay. But if they overturn the Civil Rights Act, which is next, because they overturned affirmative action, they've overturned the Voting Rights Act. The only thing left is the Civil Rights Act of 64. They overturned that. We can go back to Jim Crow.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah, yeah. I mean, kind of like, I want to go back to like our main topic as far as like black identity. I think so. What do you think that what do you think the Republicans have to do to get the black vote? Like they, because Trump has, and it's funny because if you look at the poll numbers, Trump is, when it comes to black women, he's not getting that.
No,
And
black women don't
but
mess with Trump.
that's women across the board though.
Right, right,
Usually,
right.
especially educated, if you're a female and you've gone to college, it's
Yeah,
like, I
yeah,
think the numbers are high, man. I don't want to give any false information, but the numbers are really high as far as like educated women voting Democrat.
yeah,
Um,
yeah,
so,
yeah,
but when it comes to black men, I think from the last poll, I think it might have been up to like 15-20% or something like that for black
yeah.
men.
He's
Yeah,
trending. He's trending at 18%, possibly. Of
yeah,
course, the election
yeah,
hasn't happened yet, but he's definitely, the numbers say he's trending that
yeah.
he could possibly get 18%.
And why do you think that is?
Well, I think, well, listen, oh God, I think outside of just some of them just being conservative, I think that actually a lot of us black men are not looking at the data, and we're not looking at the information. So the overall sentiment is, and some of this is Democrats' fault too, where the Democrats are taking advantage of our vote. That's why there's been this somewhat of an exodus out of the Democratic Party.
Mhm, mhm,
So, but here's the deal though. The Republicans don't even talk to the black community. They offer us nothing.
mhm,
They offer us nothing. They don't even talk to us. I mean, I always say this, that I look at that, all politics is local. So on a local level, the Democrats got a lot of work to do. On the federal level, they're fighting for civil rights, while the Republicans are fighting for states' rights.
mhm,
That's what concerns me about the Republican Party, is is that they don't do anything that helps the Black community. That's one. The second thing is that just say this: if Republicans don't do anything for poor people, for poor white people, or middle class white people, their policies only help the rich. So I think that a lot of the Black men are just feeling bad about the Democrats, so they think running to the Republican Party would be better. But based on any type of policy, I don't see what you could vote for on the Republican side as a Black man. I mean,
Mhm,
if you're on the abortion thing, I think
mhm,
you could be on that. But
mhm.
then you would also look at that and say, okay, what are you doing for the ones that are here?
Yeah.
If you
Well,
care
see,
about, go ahead.
yeah. So I mean, if you could see, so for my individual in my for my individual for my to bring it home for my case here in Texas, uh, Governor Abbott, right? They're talking
Mhm,
about now. It's just this is just talk, but they're talking about just doing away. I think actually it's Ken Paxton had brought up, hey, he's going to propose it um, to legislators here in Texas. Say just get rid of the income. Yeah, I'm not sorry, income because we don't have income tax, property taxes. Um, and I know him. I know Abbott and DeSantis were going back and forth. They were kind of like flexing on each other, kind of going back and forth, saying, "Oh yeah, Texas has the lowest is lowering its property taxes," and then Dan DeSantis had announced something, and then Abbott had clapped back, basically saying that he's going to lower your property taxes. So
mhm,
they're looking at a lot of black men like myself, they're looking at the far as the policies of like uh, lower taxes, um, gun rights,
mhm,
you know what I mean, two-way Second Amendment rights, school choice, because here in Texas, you have a lot more options for our school choice. You can homeschool your kids. You have a lot more options that way. If your kids want to go to, a certain, if you want to kids to go to a better district, it's a lot easier here in Texas versus some other states. Um, basically, I believe too. I'm not 100% sure on this, but when it comes to like churches and taxation stuff like that, I have to ask my pastor about this. But you know, those kind of things, religious liberty, especially in Oklahoma, because you got Dusty Devers, a Christian guy, he's in there, he's in office up in the state of Oklahoma.
mhm,
And he said, "Hey, I'm a Christian. I'm gonna look out for Christian people, And so anyway, but in Texas here, and I think a lot of black men are looking at the economy and looking at inflation. Inflation,
mhm,
everything. Food prices are way up.
mhm,
Um, gas prices. You could attest to this being in California for sure. Gas prices are way up. And that more has to do with your state. But then
mhm,
again, it's a Democrat, running running the state of California. So um, I think what they're looking at both parties and they're saying, hey, we've been voting this way for so many years, and hey, and particularly what I'm talking about, I was listening to this interview, and this lady was I don't know if you might have seen this. I think it was on CNBC. She was interviewing. She went to a black barber shop down in Atlanta, and she was
mhm,
like, and the dude, and they were asked. She was asking the guys there, the reporter. She was asking the guys. She said, "Hey, who you guys voting for?" He's like, "Well, I'm thinking about voting for Trump because," he said, "Man, everything's expensive, man." He's like, I'm struggling." He said, "I'm struggling," you
mhm,
know,
mhm, mhm,
and of course, he was in a conservative state. He's in a conservative state, but he was like looking at everything, and he's like, "Yeah, man, everything's super expensive." And that's why so many people come into Georgia, so many people come into to Texas, and it's because of those conservative policies. They're looking at you know at the Trump policies, like Trump is talking about, hey, I'm gonna if you're a homeschool parent, I'm gonna give you a tax breaks, and that would definitely help me out, because I'm paying taxes to the city that my kids aren't going to the local schools here in the city, and I'm paying taxes, so
mhm,
I'm losing that way.
mhm.
So yeah, yeah.
Well, I think that us as Black men, and I talked about this on my TikTok, is that we got to make sure that we really do our homework and study. So yeah, you're right. Inflation is high. but
Mhm.
inflation takes 2 years to hit the market. It takes
Yeah.
2 years to leave.
Yeah.
So actually, inflation started under Trump, and here's what Trump did. First of all, he started a trade war with China. If you want
Mhm.
to add extra tariffs and everything like that,
Yeah.
well, China can clap back. So if you break down the global supply chain, and then and you fracture our relationship with our international partners,
Yeah.
of course, now things have gone up, and then prices, the rates were very low, and then the Feds had to raise the rates because everybody was buying everything to try to cool down inflation. But inflation was already here. But
Yeah.
inflation has dropped a lot. It's dropped down like 3.1%. So it takes 2 years for inflation for us to realize it, and it takes
Mhm.
2 years to leave.
Mhm.
So it kind of has so that's why they have to understand it. They have to do some little bit of study on how inflation works.
Yeah.
Another thing is that as far as on the Democratic policies, black household wealth is higher. Black household income, home ownership is better because the Democrats support policies that support the middle class and lower class, where most black people are. You know what I
Mhm.
mean?
Mhm.
So I think we have to look at the policy. And if you look at the last 5 markets where black people did the best, it was
Mhm.
under Democratic leadership. And I think, like I said, I think where black people really get it is they're looking at like Baltimore, or they're looking at, I don't know, Compton, or you're looking at some states where there are Democratic mayors.
Mhm.
They may be having like potholes, they may be trashy streets and all that type of stuff. So they look at that and say, okay, now I'm gonna vote Republican.
Mhm.
So I
Mhm.
think if you really dig deep into the policy, and if you really measure how black people do on a Republican leadership and Democratic leadership, you'll find that they do better on a Democratic leadership.
Yeah. Yeah. But you know that actually too, that goes. I mean, you're talking about um, Republican and voting Republican and Democrat.
Mhm,
Man, I was listening to and they're talking about the history of the two parties.
mhm.
And what the Republican Party used to be called? That was called the Party for the Negroes.
Yeah.
Because we were heavily involved in the Republican Party originally.
Yes.
You know,
Yeah.
Democrats were all, that was the party of the Klan. That was a political arm of the Klan. I would say the Klan was the muscle of the Democrat Party. They were the militant muscle of the Democrat Party. Um, yeah. So if you just look historically, um, you know, it's a lot of things. I would say, um, you know, r- I guess traditional Republicans have been, kind of like, hey, hands off, uh, you know,
Yeah. Mhm.
government, small government, not libertarian. Libertarian just like is like, hey, just let. But conservatives, hey, basically traditional marriage, but I'm not gonna, tax you into oblivion. But this new republicanism is like, hey, it's crony capitalism. It's you know, uh, basically, give tax breaks for the, it was because it was Bush, that basically when it came to bailing out the banks,
Mhm.
and then also too, um, and also too to bring it to recent times, I would say what you're saying about the inflation thing. I think what really, really hurt Trump was COVID, of course, during that
Mhm.
time with COVID. And then given that COVID, that PPE money, given that PPE money, that was, I think, is what caused a lot of bad things too, as far as like the economy, because man, it was just like, this isn't free money. The government, know this. The government it's not a producer, it doesn't make any money.
Right.
It
Right.
prints money, which it shouldn't do, but it doesn't it takes from the private sector, you know what I mean?
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
I think as far as Trump, when it came to the end of towards the end of his presidency, COVID really hurt him politically and financially, because even like, a lot of conservatives will come out and say, hey man, like it was Trump that was pushing the jab, and they were like, "Man, I don't, we don't want this. We don't want this vaccine, man. It was created way too fast." And Trump was telling people, "Oh yeah, just take, it was Operation Warp Speed. Go ahead and just take it." And a lot of conservatives were like, "Nah, I'm not taking. I don't care who you are. I'm not taking this vaccine."
Mhm.
Um, and so like and back to our topic. I don't want to go too far on a tangent. I think a lot of when it comes to the black identity and politics, I think a lot of black folks are saying, "Hey, we've been voting Democrat for a long time."
Mhm.
They say, "Hey, they've been controlling our cities, they've
Mhm.
been controlling our police forces, they've been
Mhm.
controlling our city councils, everything, and there hasn't been a change." I'm looking around and it's still, I can't if I'm in Chicago, I can't own a gun. It's hard for me to own a gun legally, but Pookie and Ray Ray got their guns. They don't follow the laws, you
Mhm.
know,
Mhm.
and
Mhm.
I got to be able to protect myself. But Democrats are saying, hey, black folks, are telling, law-abiding citizens, telling, black people, law-abiding citizens, oh, you got to do this and just jump through all these hoops to get a gun. But you know, obviously, the criminals aren't abiding by those laws. You know what
Mhm.
I mean?
Mhm.
And so, black men, I would say in this case, um, are looking at the policies and looking at their surroundings and saying like,
Mhm.
something's got to change. Something's got to change.
Mhm.
And so,
Mhm.
yeah,
Mhm.
man, yeah.
Well, I think that here's what I always say about, like I said, on a local level, like I said, all politics is local. Democrats need to do better on a local level. There are some things, but what I always ask is, what are those black men doing about it? Because
Hmm.
we're the
Yeah.
only race that says somebody is taking advantage of us. If the API community don't do that, white people definitely don't do that. You
Hmm.
know, um, even Latino community, nobody's saying that except us. So I think when it looks like at politics, it is what we do is we vote, and half of us don't even vote.
Yeah, that's true.
So we vote and then we sit on our butts and do nothing.
Yeah.
Politics is the game is you vote for who you think is going to do the most, and then you hold them accountable. It for all these black men are saying, uh, the city. So we'll go local. So your county supervisor, your city councilman, and your mayor.
Hmm.
How many of these black men have called their city councilman and said, "Look, if you don't fix these potholes, then we're going to vote you out." Because the
Yeah.
mayor and the city council are responsible for the look and feel of your city. If you have a homeless problem, like we have in LA, are you calling your county supervisor and say that provides the programs, and then the mayor provides the facilities? What are you doing about this problem? And a lot of
Yeah.
black men aren't doing anything.
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
so I look at it like this: it's 50% public policy, 50% personal responsibility. The
Hmm.
personal responsibility, black men are failing miserably at that.
Yeah. Yeah.
You
Yeah.
look at
Yeah.
the Republican states, if you look in the Republican states, out of the top 10 poorest states in the nation, 8 of them are Republican. So the Republicans are broke too. If you look at the poorest county in the nation, is Sumner County in Georgia. It's named after a Confederate general. And that is, and it's 65% white. It is the poorest county in the nation. And those, you know, gun toting, Confederate clad, white beater wearing white folks are still voting Republican. So
Hmm.
if the Republicans don't do anything for middle class or poor white people, what makes you think they're going to do anything for black people? And you can't name me a policy in the last 100 years where a Republican has done something to help black folks. Now, if you look at the history of it, I'll be real short. From 1619 to 1865, we were independent. We had no rights. From 1865 to about 19, I think probably the 1960s, we were Republican. Well,
Hmm.
maybe about the 1930s because you had um those what's the name? Herbert Hoover, the
Hmm.
president before FDR, started the Lily White movement. So he teamed up with like people like Jesse Helms and Strom Thurmond. And if you look between 1865 and 1930s, the Confederate flag was nowhere around. But this Lily White movement resurrected the Confederate flag, and they were Republican.
Hmm.
So black people started seeing these just change, and then we switched to the Democratic Party.
Yeah.
So we were once independent, we were once Republican, and then we switched Democrat because you had FDR. I mean, I'm sorry, Lyndon Baines Johnson. They gave the Voting Rights Act, Civil Rights Act, and Fair Housing Act. So
Hmm.
naturally, we're going to switch to the Democratic Party.
Yeah. And I've heard other things of like as far as like the history of that. Well, they were saying one of the pivotal shifts for the black vote when it comes to black identity politics. One of the big shifts, what happened was during the time when King was in prison, and Senior got basically gave the black community the okay to go to switch Democrat because JFK said, "Hey, if I get in there, I'm gonna let King out." And
Yeah.
so of course that didn't happen because he was assassinated.
Yep.
And then um,
Yep.
but then of course Lyndon Baines Johnson, of course with the him signing off on the Civil Rights Act and stuff like that. So
Mm-hmm.
that's when they said that's when the black vote really flipped.
That's
It was
right.
kind of like
True.
it was teetering, but that's when it really flipped.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah,
Yep.
yeah,
Yep.
yeah,
That's true.
yeah,
So if the Republicans, if you got like black, like you said, you listen to black conservative preachers,
yeah,
why are they not talking about Marjorie Taylor Greene? Why are they
mhm,
not talking about Skip Gates or Jim Jordan? Why are
yeah,
they not talking about people like Charlie Kirk, these white supremacists? Why are they not talking about them? So I'm trying to figure out, how do you find your way in a white nationalist party that's fighting for states' rights? You got people like Christopher Russo, Edward Bloom, these highly financed white conservatives that are trying to turn back all the black protections like DEI, saying we don't need it. When, how do you not need it if 97% of America's wealth is owned by white people and they're focused on keeping white men in power? How is it equal for black people? If
yeah,
we own a football team, right? Me and you, I
mhm,
own 97% of the team and you own 3%.
mhm,
There's no equality.
mhm,
I own the team. And the
yeah,
system that black men get up every day to compete in is controlled by white men. Now, look, you got these corporate Democrats that are racist as hell too. I'm not about absolving them.
yeah,
My point is that the Republicans are really, everything they're doing, and this is the reason why I wanted Hillary Clinton to be president, because we would not have a Comey Barrett or the other alcoholic clown on the Supreme Court and allowing them to overturn everything that impacts black folks.
mhm, mhm. I guess we were right coming up on 40 minutes, but I think that I mean so what you're bringing up of about the system, and I think I'll leave the show with this caveat, with this question, and maybe this will springboard us into our next topic for next week.
Mhm,
Um, a lot of black uh, conservatives have looked at the issue of, hey, black progressives are saying that, hey, it's systematic, it's a system. We're in the
mhm,
racist system.
mhm,
So if the system is racist, why do we go if we have oppressors,
mhm.
why we look into the oppressors to free us or to change or to we're so dependent on the system or the oppressors to make change when we're constantly complaining about it. Maybe that's maybe the topic for our next show.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah,
hey,
there's truth to that, and we gotta we w-
self-reliance,
we
basically. They're talking about self-reliance, basically.
yeah,
It
we
says
were in it.
stop looking to the government to change. And that's kind of like what I was saying is like, hey, when it comes to like smaller government, stop looking for the government or looking for policies to change, to looking for the type of change that you want. Because what happens is, um, once you get somebody in there that you like, and they make the changes that you like.
Mhm,
Well, what happens when somebody gets in there that you don't like? They can
mhm,
change it. They can change it back. So
mhm.
like you know,
Yeah.
yeah.
All right, well,
So
man. Well, here's
all
the
right.
thing. I think we can leave with this. I think that I think you're right, and I think that, the end of the day is, if you can get a conservative like these Larry Elders or a Jesse Lee Peterson or a Terrence K. Williams or a Candace Owens, if you can get them to say, "Hey, I care about black people. People on the left care about black people. Let's put our political differences aside and be one,"
Yeah.
we could have that conversation. But these black conservatives, they ain't gonna do that. You know why? It's a bag. At the end of the day, if you're a self-hating black person, you talk about DEI, you talk about racism doesn't exist, you talk about Black Lives Matter. White conservatives will pay you. So it keeps this division. We're integrated into a system that they control and run. And I think you're right. I think Black people need to start our own. We need to come together as Democrats and Republicans at some point and build our own system. That's the only way.
Yeah.
My man.
All right.
That's our conversation, my man. I appreciate you.
Oh, you too. You too.
All
Salute,
right.
Dad.
All right.
Talk to you
Salute.
later.
Next time.
All right.